Today, we're going to dive into one of the most foundational stories out there, the fall of man from Genesis chapter 3. What we're going to do is strip away all the layers of interpretation for a minute and just look directly at the text itself, seeing exactly how this story unfolds step by step. So, what does the original story actually say happened in the Garden of Eden? If we focus just on the text, we can follow the sequence of events exactly as they were written down. So, let's start where the story starts with a simple question. What's really interesting is that this whole thing doesn't kick off with some big action. It starts with a conversation. We get introduced to this new character, a serpent, and it's described as being more subtle or, more clever and cunning than any other animal. And it's this character that gets the whole ball rolling. So the serpent comes up to the woman, and get this, it doesn't start with a demand or a threat. It just asks a question. And notice how it's phrased. It's designed to plant just a tiny seed of doubt about what God really said. It's a really subtle but very smart way to start.
Now, the woman's response is super clear. She repeats the rule, right? She confirms they can totally eat from the other trees. But pay close attention here. She adds a little detail. Neither shall ye touch it. Now, that part wasn't in God's original command. By making the rules sound even stricter than it actually was, she kind of raises the stakes for what's about to happen.
And there it is, the serpent just comes right out and says the exact opposite of the warning. You won't die. But then it goes a step further. It gives a motive, suggesting God is actually holding something back from them, this incredible divine knowledge. The promise isn't just that they'll live, it's that they'll be elevated, as gods. So this whole conversation has perfectly set the stage for the most critical moment in the entire story. The woman is now stuck between two completely opposite claims, and she's got to make a choice. And what's so important here is that the text shows us this wasn't some random impulse. It actually walks us through her thought process. She looks at the fruit and evaluates it on 3 different levels. It looked good to eat, it was beautiful to look at, and it promised to make her wise. And that thought process leads straight to action. She takes the fruit, she eats it, and then she gives some to her husband, who, and this is a key detail the text says was with her. He was right there. And with no argument, no hesitation that's recorded, he eats it too. And just like that, it's done.
While the serpent's promise that their eyes would be opened, it came true. But probably not in the way they thought it would. The very first thing they realize with this new knowledge isn't some cosmic power, but a sudden awareness that they're vulnerable, that they're naked. And their very first act is to try and cover that up, a direct reaction to this new feeling of shame.
So, that big internal change they've just experienced is immediately followed by an external one. The whole vibe of the garden is about to shift. They hear a sound they know well, but this time, their reaction is totally different. Instead of feeling confident with their new knowledge, they feel fear. Instead of going to greet God like they might have before, they hide. This simple act of hiding, that's the first huge crack in the relationship with their Creator. And listen to God's first question. It's not an accusation like, what did you do? It's a question about location. Where are you? This kicks off a kind of questioning, where God is basically prompting the man to explain himself and why he's suddenly acting so scared. And this part is just fascinating. We see this chain of blame start to form. When God confronts Adam, what does he do? He points his finger at the woman, and kind of subtly at God too, right? The woman you gave me. Then, when the woman is asked, she points her finger at the serpent. The responsibility just gets passed right down the line. Nobody actually owns up to their choice. So the blame game has been played, and now the story shifts to the consequences. A very specific judgment is handed down to each of the 3 characters involved, starting in the reverse order that they were questioned. First up, the serpent. Its punishment is physical and it's permanent. It's cursed to crawl in its belly, brought lower than all the other animals, which is a huge drop from being the most subtle of all the beasts. The judgment for the woman is centered on 2 really fundamental areas of her life. First, childbirth, which from now on will involve pain. And second, her relationship with her husband, which is now described with this new dynamic of desire and rule. And finally, the man. His judgment is tied directly to the very thing he was made from, the ground. His work, his effort to get food from the earth, is now going to be full of sorrow and struggle, full of thorns and thistles.
And it all ends with the ultimate confirmation of his mortality. From dust you came, and to dust you will return. Okay, so the judgments have all been declared, but the story's not quite over. It's all building to this final, irreversible moment, their expulsion from the garden.
But before they're actually sent out, two really remarkable things happen. First, you have this act of hope. The man names the woman Eve, which means mother of all living. It's like he's looking toward the future, despite everything. And then you have this act of care. God himself makes them better clothes out of animal skins to replace their flimsy fig leaves. So the judgments explain the new hardships they're going to face, but they don't really explain why they have to leave home. The text gives us a very specific, very critical reason for why they were exiled.
And this right here, this is the core reason. God says, okay, they've done it. They've become like one of us, knowing good and evil. The immediate danger now is that they might reach out, take the fruit from the other special tree, the tree of life, and live forever. They would lock themselves into this new fallen state forever.
So the solution is separation, complete separation. The man and woman are driven out, and the way back is blocked, permanently. The text describes these powerful angelic beings, cherubim, and a flaming sword that guards the path to the tree of life, making absolutely sure that humanity can never get back in. And so the story ends not just with a punishment, but with a whole new reality for mankind. And it kind of leaves you with this big, lingering thought, doesn't it? What would have happened if they had reached the tree of life and gained immortality while knowing good and evil? That guarded path is as much a part of the story's meaning as the choice that put it there.